But there are some people who are saying, I don't have somebody that is on the ground that can, do this buying for me. I want to find out, is there a technological means that maybe you have, thought about as being a solution, maybe real-time video conferencing, or how else do you think that diaspora buyers can be protected? Because some of them, they don't want to reveal it to their family what they are buying because they have been burnt before. So they are trying to be careful. So please give us insight. If you also have testimonials of people who you have helped with this as well, so that people can.
A lot of that. The biggest scam that you can ever fall into is the one by family members. Why? Because you trust anything they say and all of that. So if they don't have track record of fulfilling promise with you, then you can't trust them. It's the same thing with even organizations, right? And I think that what is critical, you've even mentioned it. Video conferencing is one technology that you can deploy, but you still will not be able to get a complete view, like if you are physically on ground, or you have someone whose sense of judgment you can trust. So there's no point. I mean, there's no way you will still not require to take some measure of risk by way of trust, risk of trust, to say, okay, no problem. I want to buy 1 acre. Let me try with 1 plus. Maybe because of my investment banking background, whenever people want to do big things with me, I always like to tell them, why don't you start small, right? Let us build a relationship. Why? Because real estate is a long-term transaction. It's a long-term thing, right? And so if I'm only interested in selling you this plot of land, and that is all. I mean, I'm not an estate agent that just show you this house, and then once you pay his commission, is gone for life. That's not what I'm not. I mean, our organization is not like that. Do you understand? There are people who bought 13 years ago, right? And we have them in database. They still receive mail, receive communication till date, right? But so you want to also investigate the institution or organization that you are also dealing with, right? What's been their antecedents? What's been their, challenges will occur, but when those challenges occur, how did they confront it? How did they deal with those things, right? Or how are they dealing with it? Because the same thing that can happen to one can happen to the other, and then they will take to their heels. They will run away, right? I recall, maybe 4 or 5 years into our business, one of our executive director's classmate when he was in school, who was also working with a real estate firm, used to wonder, how come you have all the details of the direction of the company? And we plan things. This is the structure. This is the direction. We know everything. I'm involved also. So it's not like somebody is telling things and I'm regurgitating it, So, and then what had happened in the real estate firm where this gentleman was part of was that they had acquired the land, collected money from people, and paid genuinely. Everything was genuine, no mago. But it turned out that not only was Omonile threatening to kill anybody they see on sites, government also now imposed allocation acquisition on the land. So it was like, okay, so the company CEO just could not figure out a way out, because this was not just a reputational risk. His life was at risk. His business everything was at risk. He applied the law of abandonment and took to his heels. I mean, just one morning, the guy just called the CEO of the company, called these guys and said, guys, say you are in the office, okay, so you people just continue, you people are fine, open tomorrow too. And that's how a lot of businesses are folded up. Why? Not because they were involved in any shady deal, but it turned out that they didn't have the stomach for the adversity that comes, right? I can't go into, if I tell you the things that we have, both spiritual attack, physical, financial, emotional trauma, psychological torture. When you hear some things with government, with community and all of those things. Now, it's like, this is the reason people don't want to buy themselves. But we decided to go take it on. There should be some praise for an award for developers in Nigeria. I'm telling you the truth. And I can say this categorically. People have made a lot of money. Unfortunately, those news don't go viral. All the people who have benefited from the industry, the news is not going viral. Everybody keeps to themselves. It is when you hear of one scam or few scams that it goes viral. You see how far bad news travel. I have seen countless families cry on day of allocation. I've seen an individual say to us that in his lineage, he has nobody own parcel of land, let alone build a house. Today, the guy is living on his land, built on his house, or built his house on the same land he bought from us. For somebody like that. So what can be more encouraging than that? So it is when you have not done anything and you have not withstood any form of pressure or attack that you can. I mean, we have also built fenced properties that has been broken down. We have had moments in our business history where we allocated. In fact, that particular project had the highest number of diaspora Nigerians at the time, because we've scaled even much more now. And at that time, everybody had been allocated. Some of them had even started building. Do you believe the same company that sold, the same family that sold to us, with all the chiefs, all the ballet, and all the representative principal members of the family and the heads of the community, everybody was present, everybody they signed and collected money. Do you know they resold the same land to a cement company that came from China? And they demolished everything that people had built. Ask me, how did we deal with that? Thank God, as a company, we've always been extremely shrewd. I mean, we don't look like people who are something. So what we just simply did was to first and foremost get another place, resettle everybody, and then compensate them for why? Because our name is at stake. They don't know anybody else. It's we. When things like this happen and you don't have reserve and you don't have any backup, no other property elsewhere, what do? It will appear as though you did not receive money or that you did not pay. Is that not what will happen? Is that not how those type of things happen? And then people begin to say nasty things, right? So, but if you have ever bought any parcel of land with all the due diligence that we factor in the whole process, so all of that still happen. That's why I said you can do everything right and still go wrong. You know, I was listening to Aliko Dangote's interview, maybe on Bloomberg or so, and he was talking about that the refinery they eventually built in Ibejuleki wasn't meant to be there originally. It was supposed to be in Ogun State. But the government of the time frustrated them. A project that should not have taken up to maybe 5 or 6 years eventually took them 13 years because they had to move out of that place after 4 years of frustration and investments, right? So you need to have a passion and have a commitment because you need to have a deep love for your country to continue to operate in Nigeria. I think I still saw a video recently where he was saying that to have invested $25 billion in the refinery, if you put those money in Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft, it'll be worth more than 125 billion today, right? But he never did for love of country. Now, what is the greatest thing you can do to such a person? Is it sabotage? Is it to frustrate them further? Or to give them a award? Is it to recognize them? Is it to support them? It's the same thing with most of us who are doing business, right? what we get for the sacrifice we make behind the scene. Of course, I mean, I told my team one day, I said, nobody paid us for stories. They paid us for value. Nobody paid us for process. They are not paying to hear process. They paid for the end result, outcome. So let's not. And because at a point I was feeling like these people should understand that this is what we are doing. One day I was meditating and it occurred to me that no, that's the reason why you're in the business. If they wanted to do the process, then they would have done it themselves. They came to you so that they can bypass that process. If we wanted to build our house by ourselves, we would have done it by ourselves. But we wanted to bypass that process and we say, okay, we give you the money, go and build. Whatever you encounter is your headache. Whether price changed or remained the same is none of our headache. And we have experienced that. And I know friends who have gone through that. So that's why I keep saying to people that the greatest, the truest test of integrity is adversity, right? Show me your stars and I'll show you my scars. I rest my case.
I really like that. At some point I wanted to say you should share some of the things that you've experienced in terms of challenges and mistakes. But I think you already mentioned some of that. I don't know if you want to say more for people who are excited and jumping already and say, I want to be in this business. We're hearing that you go through spiritual, emotional, all those trauma. I need to ask the potential realtors or developers or investors that I hope that you are ready. And you don't actually have to, do this alone. That's why we're saying they are professional services firm. And you also heard where OC mentioned earlier that being a realtor is one of the easiest way. But the thing is, you need to get a mentor. Once you have a mentor who has, paid the dues, has cried, and has taken all of the scars, it's easy for you to just ride on those wings and say, "Oh, I'm just soaring. I'm just, making it." You're just hitting the milestones because someone else has paid it forward. So this brings me to my next two questions will be about making money from real estate.
Okay.
What are some of the strategies that a person can adopt to make money from real estate before we now come to what the income streams are, or if you want to take both together? What
All
are
right.
you?
So so you can buy land and build, build and put it for rent, or sell some and keep some. And there's a lot of money to be made there. You can buy and resell later, like I talked about earlier, to fund new projects, business projects, or even building projects. So if you bought 10 acres of land now, and in another 10 years, you decide that, well, you'll sell 5 acres to build on the remaining 5 acres. That's a strategy. You make money, right? Or buy the 10 acres now, sell 5 to go and build in the city, right? And then turn it up for build a hotel, that's what some people have done. Some people also buy land, perfect all their title, secure their land with all the strategy I elucidated earlier on, and then decide that, well, they will only be using that asset as collateral to access cash to do whatever project they want to do, right? You can also build houses. I'm just giving, these are all scattered thoughts right now, but on the top of my head, you can buy building and renting traditionally, where you get annually rent, is not the best way to optimize, real estate assets, even though it's safer and it's convenient. But again, it's not as convenient because when your current tenant vacates, then you now notice that there's also many defects on your building. You now need to spend money that you did not collect or that you did not make to maintain the same property. So people consider short-term rentals, right? It's a very smart way. It's just that it will require some more money to furnish the apartment, like a hotel, home-like residence, provide power, provide all the things, and then you want to make sure that that property is If cash flow is your objective, if cash flow is fundamental to you when it comes to real estate, then you want to really, really consider building or buying a house that is not far from airports, from major urban activities like shopping malls, cinemas, and what have you. That's also very important. Or situated within a serene, secured, and safe estate, right? You want to begin to look at that. So short-term rentals. Then you can also consider um, long-term corporate leases, right? That's also one powerful way to unlock, capital from your assets, right? It's one powerful way to unlock capital from your real estate assets. I mean, you could buy a property for maybe, or build it for maybe less than 200 million or maybe 400 million. And by putting it for corporate lease for, say, 10 years, you could make that money back because they lease it for 10 years. You could make that money back and even more, right? And the property is still yours. So in essence, you have unlocked the money you invested in that same property. You can repeat the same process, right? You can repeat the same process. Whatever it costs you to build this, if you have unlocked it through corporate lease, right, you can repeat the same process by building another one and then do the same again and again. Because there are institutions who come to Nigeria, foreign institutions who come to Nigeria, rather than buy properties, they just lease, right? They are coming to test the market. And many of such institutions typically repatriate all their profit, 100% of their profit back, and they don't want to own anything. They just want to lease, right? And there are companies like that, okay? Until their companies become indigenous in a way, either by way of having indigenous investors in those companies, right? Then they can consider now begin to retain or buy assets within the country. Until that happens, they don't want to take too much risk by building anything here. They just repatriate 100% of their funds back to their headquarters or home country. So that's one thing that you may want to consider. You also it's not everybody who makes money in real estate that buys. Some people lease. In fact, there are lessees who make more money than the lessors. In other words, there are people who are tenants who make more money from the property than the landlord because they know how best to utilize and optimize those assets. Okay, so and of course you can buy land and keep for long term and just hold onto it. There are people who bought land in that manner in what's it called now, in VGC, who have remained, who bought it when it was full swamp, right? And they bought large portion of land. The same thing, with some of these other cities, So that's one thing you can do, and then you can either build on it later on, or lease it, or sell it, as time progresses. So those are some of the ways by which you can make money. You can also buy dilapidated buildings, refurbish, and throw back into the market, either by way of sales or by way of rent, whether short-term rental or long-term leases, and all of that. So those are dynamic ways by which you can make money from the real estate. I don't know if I made any sense.
Okay, so thank you for stating some of the strategies and the income streams that can be made from real estate. And I'm sure that viewers are already thinking, okay, so how can I get started? Which one should be the low hanging fruit? So, what is the low hanging fruit for someone who is saying, okay, I want to start today, I want to start investing now? Which of the asset classes should they start with? Should it be land? Should it be houses? Or we also know that their objective will also define what they start with. But I would just like you to speak to what a beginner should be looking at, what an experienced person, and maybe also based on some hypothetical income bracket, what they can start with right now.
All right. So if you have access to cheap funds, or So when I say access, doesn't mean you have the money, but you have access to cheap funds, or you have access to free money. You can begin today, depending on your objectives, you can begin today by buying houses. Okay. Most houses that are already completed are usually sold at premium. When it comes to real estate, you don't only make money when you sell, you actually make money when you buy. So when you buy below market price, right, at the beginning, that brings you a lot of advantages. But we don't, you know, we don't usually. So let me give you an example, real life example. So we did a project called Orange Apartments in Ogba, Didiolu Ogba Ikeja, and some of us already know that property, right? And it was one of our most daring and one of our most difficult business decisions and business experiences. One, the cost of fund that we used to drive that project was extremely high. The hike in the cost of construction of that project, was equally high. And I'm bringing this to the fore because sometimes if you only educate people on all the, and all of those things, people don't know the back end. And I gave my entire team, we were under pressure during that period. And I gave them very strict timelines. When I made strict timelines, in fact, one of my, pastor friends who came in from Abuja visited us one time and, asked me, when is this project going to be delivered? At the time he came, we already got into, I think, the roofing. I told him that we're dedicating the building by October. Now, being an experienced builder himself, being an experienced quantity surveyor himself, he told me it was impossible. I didn't see it at the time, but the MD of our construction company at the time, reassured me that no, we will deliver. So he said, if you deliver this project by this date you are talking about, I will personally give you 1 million. That was the way he said it to the guy. That was when it occurred to me that so all the promises we gave to people that, by so and so you get your house, you get this, all of that will not happen, right? So the cost of fund was very high. So the cost of delivering that project rose within 4 months. Bag of cement that were originally planned for 2,550 in the bill of quantity moved to 3,600 within 4 months. POP cement that was priced at 4,200 per bag went to 8,200. All these things happen within 4 months. That's not to talk of reinforcements. That's not to talk of many other items. Everything skyrocketed. Listen, anybody who was in the built industry, who had built houses prior 2020, right, will tell you that there was a measure of stability 5 years prior or earlier, right? But the last 5 years has been completely disruptive. The price of Naira against the dollar has been, has experienced the most random thing that you can ever imagine, So, and when it comes to construction, 75% of that input, right, goes to procurement. And a significant portion of that, right, is import dependent. Now, everybody who is buying houses off plan or bought houses off plan should understand this. The reality. Everybody knows these things, but they don't want to accept it. So you start seeing all sorts of allegations and say, they diverted money and all of those things. If we tell you what we have even committed by ourselves, do you know that some of this particular project I'm talking to you about, there was an amount of money we raised during that period. In fact, it was not an amount of money. There were some of the monies that we, significant portion of the money that we raised within that period. Some of them were like 30%, 50% per annum. Some of them 50% for 18 months. And just to deliver to that project. And then, so you are dealing with that one on one end. Don't forget that whoever that sold the property, we also still pay commissions. We pay government fees. We pay all those. That's why I said, when you don't envy any developer. Don't wish to carry their headache. It's not a headache you want to carry if you are not prepared for it, right? And so we went on with that particular project, and we couldn't meet up with that timeline, obviously. But we still went on with the dedication, to say that this thing is going to be completed, and so it was, right? But we didn't deliver that within that timeline. So one particular day when I was going for my routine inspection of the site, one of the subscribers in that project cited me from afar. Apparently, a lot more people know me than I know them, right? So the guy cited me and called me by my name and asked me when we were going to deliver his unit. And he was pointing at the unit to me, right, like this. And I said, well, what had happened was that the resources that we had committed to this project was supposed to be able to finish this thing within a short time, but all the prices had skyrocketed. So, and in order to complete each phase, we needed to concentrate more resources on fewer items, since that's what the resource that was available at the time. Don't forget, people were still paying installments. So it couldn't have been their money that we used to even advance the project to that level. So guess what? So I told him, and I said, bag of cement had done this. He said he knows. So that's what his wife does. I said, bag of... so he was confirming everything I was saying and was agreeing to the figures, and said, but when are you still going to deliver? In other words, I don't care whether the price has risen. I just need to move into my house. That's to tell you that the battle is fiercer than you can imagine. People really don't give a hoot. Everybody believes that for you to do this type of project, you have made a lot of money. Do you know what I have given up in the process of many of the things that we have done? Because my name is way more important, whether people believe it or not. Where I'm going is very, very far than where I'm coming from. So once you see a massive project like it, you just rationalize and know for you to do this type of project, number one, and it impacts significantly on the brand of the business. So I told my people, profit is not the goal. Let's just break even. Let's just make sure that we deliver to people. And we went the extra mile. Do you realize that it's part of the reason why we don't no longer deliver projects until everything is fully completed anymore? It doesn't matter whether you're happy or not. There were people we were paying. There was one that said his house rent has expired. We had to lodge in a hotel. We're paying rent. We're paying hotel bill. I'm telling you, the guy relocated, whether in Japada or something, I don't know. We're paying hotel bill for like 30 days or so before his unit was ready. This particular person I was talking to you about, eventually, when we eventually delivered to him, we had bought a generator. That generator was, we just bought that generator and said, see, just so that we can provide power for your unit alone. This was a 31 unit, 31 units development. Now, don't forget, money that we raised, interest is already reading. In fact, it started reading from the time we received the money, not when we completed the project. So all of this cumulatively puts us in very dire straits, put us in debt, under severe pressure. And the shocking part, nobody cared. Nobody gave a hoot. So I personally, as an individual, I have come to that point. I mean, I have a book that is coming up on real estate wealth. All the stories will be packaged in that book. If you read that book, you will cry. If you read that book, you will gain wisdom. if you read that book, you will get direction for your life, right? So if you are an investor, you would appreciate the sacrifice that developers, genuine one for that matter, the sacrifice they make, because it will be, I'll lay it bare. I may hide names, I may not mention names just to protect people, but I will mention incidents. And I have another one that's coming on business. That one, business now. Whoa, if you go in there with naivety, nobody cares. Oh, if you like, say anything you want to say. People think what you are saying is not what they are hearing. It's what they are thinking that they are hearing. So they interpret everything you say, and I mean, those are part of the things that we've had to deal with. So you can buy house, because I can't separate. I've healed now, but I went through trauma. On site, every week we were spending 500,000 as impressed on site on that particular project. And guess what? Some of these people that we now made for other sacrifice, one morning we just see somebody send you a video that the house is leaking. Somebody is bathing upstairs. What sort of rubbish is this one? So what had happened was that because we did not have the opportunity to pressure test the entire building before allocation, there were things that were not confirmed before that allocation. So that's why any construction we did after that, we didn't. If you like, be angry, we will communicate with you, give us time, right? We know that the longer it takes for us to even deliver on this project, the more expensive it gets. But it is important that we do the right thing. We need to do pressure testing and be sure that this property is in everything, all the plumbing works, all the electrical work, everything is tight, everything is watertight before we now do a look. Otherwise, it is still do you know how much we spent in order to, it was very stressful. We went on to so many things, time won't permit me to go on, but I will be able to catalog most of these experiences in the book. But one fundamental thing is, if you buy the property off plan, there's a lot of potential, but it's good you understand the dynamics, the economic dynamics of Nigeria, so that you will be aware. That's why most of us who are developers now will build, when it is 70 to 80%, we now decide that we now want to sell. Building off plan is even risky for us too, right? I have friends in the industry who have had to refund money, and some people say, no, I'm not collecting money. I'm not collecting money. It's the house I want. If you like, deliver it in 2030. It's the house I want. I don't want money. Do you understand? And we as a company, we have a project also that we are also working on, that there's nobody that bought the property. The cost of even delivering the property is almost more than 50%, if not more than 50% of the how much we sold it. Do you understand what I'm talking about? So it's a lot. So, and our commitment is, see, if you purchase this project, we'll still deliver to you no matter what. Yes, it is costing us way more than you paid, but we'll deliver all the same, right? We may appeal to you to help our career, but that is if you choose to respond. If you don't respond, our responsibility is to deliver. But going forward, if you like, you say the houses are overpriced, okay, go and build one and deliver it for cheap. Period. Now, is that not simple? Stop coming to tell us one house is too expensive, and you are saying New York, Manhattan. So when I hear some of these things, some people send me some of those videos and say, what do you have to say to this? I say, okay, tell me where did this guy come from? What has he done before? What has he built before? And they are gathering followers, everybody is following them, everybody is, so if it is to generate followers, that's a good way to do it now. But don't forget that whatever goes around comes around. It will boomerang, right? Yes, except you don't start one. Except you don't start one. Until you start one, you will never value the ones. It's just like young girls, young ladies. It's until you start having children you respect your mother more, right? You think developers are useless people? Come and join us.
Thank you very much. I like that you also shared another challenge that you've experienced. So people who are listening, who are going to go into the business can also pick up lessons from that. And we definitely look forward to the book. We look forward to crying, gaining insights, increasing the knowledge, all of it. We are here for it. So I like that we'll be talking a lot about, diaspora people coming to invest in Nigeria. So now I'm also thinking about people with a lot of money in Nigeria thinking about investing outside the country again, the other way around. I think we should just speak to that because some people don't even know that it's possible. They don't know how to go about it. It sounds very alien. The only thing they're familiar with is, oh, I'm coming to, I'm a Nigerian abroad coming to invest, but they don't know, oh, I'm a Nigerian in Nigeria and I can invest in other countries, African countries, also in America. So please, could you speak to this just to enlighten them and let them know that there's a lot of breadth and width in real estate industry?
All right. So yes, so there are a lot of opportunities. And then in this time and age, you can't afford to just keep investments. You need to diversify your investments into not just a single asset class. You want to also consider multiple sectors. You want to also look at multiple currencies or countries, as the case may be, right? And in order to do that, you want to own assets in other climes, right? That is fetching you passive income or that is appreciating in another currency. There were some of the things that we, just like Dangote alluded to, there are things that, looking back, I still told my team, I said, if all this money that we raised then to do all this construction and still ended up in trouble, in pressure, under severe pressure, right? If we move those money and use it to buy properties in America and then in the UK and all of those other places, number one, we would have been able to pay everybody very easily, not with stress. But there will be nothing going on in Nigeria, right? So again, we would have also been able, to how do I put this now? We would have been able to also now be able to invest back in Nigeria more easily. So you get the point I'm making. So there are opportunities. I mean, Nigerians can invest abroad. America has a lot of opportunities, a lot of cheap houses. Yes, the higher the grade, the higher the grade of area that you're buying, the more expensive it is. But there are cheaper places that you can buy where human beings live, not animals. Human beings they live, right? And then that can establish cash flow for you. And then you can do it as an individual. You can do sole ownership, right? And have multiple of such units. And then you can also do fractional ownership where you come together as a group, right? In 2022, we decided to set up our firm in the US, and and all of that. So, but we have now beginning to, as a company, we are now beginning to look more intently into that fractional ownership option, right? For people who may not be able to afford to buy on their own. I say it all the time. People um, people typically come together. We are communal when we want to do wedding, naming, and all sorts of ceremonies, right? But we're not communal when it comes to investing. It's time we begin to select our friends, our partners, based on, okay, what are we buying? What can we buy next? And all of those things. So we've created that option for people. So we have not started any developments in the US, not at all. We are only exploiting the real estate opportunities that exist, so which people can take advantage of. So it's very, very possible. and it can enhance not only your cash flow in dollars, which of course impacts significantly on your net worth. Today now, you can't be talking that you are a billionaire. If you are a billionaire in naira, you are still a thousandaire in dollars. so until you are truly a millionaire in the US, in USD, then you are not really a millionaire. So any other millionaire, you are still, yeah, I just don't want to use the word. So you are still coming up. So if you really are looking for something stable, something, so you are looking toward a time when your children will study abroad, right? Or you are looking towards a time when, you'll be able to, you know, um, you know, pursue some projects, maybe your PhD in Harvard or Yale, or you want to go for a course and all of those things. Start with a project that will fund that other project. So that can be something you can consider, right? If you are looking to start your business in the United States, right, that will also be the first step forward. Right? The first step, right? You want to consider, because when you start a business in the United States, it doesn't mean you start making money immediately. There will still be some culture shock. You'll still need some time to be able to understand the system and understand the environment. And that doesn't mean you will not continue to run expenses, right? And your expenses will be multiple and it will be on autopilot, right? So it will be nice and strategic thing to acquire properties ahead of that. So that eventually before your business starts off or before your business begins to generate revenue, you already have assets that can give you soft landing and make things a lot easier. These were things that I probably could have considered as well, but so I'm sharing this now because with benefit of hindsight, I could have done differently, right? So that's very, very important that people should consider. So depending on the financial resources available to you, you can do sole ownership, all the titles, everything will be your name, right? And then and then if you cannot afford to buy a property all in your name because of the financial resources, so you can just basically reach out to us and then we can guide you through the process. No, it's seamless, it's easier, right? You know, I can go on and on that, but there are a lot of opportunities here. And then if you even decide to buy in your name, it will make, rather than buying your name, you can register a company and buy in the name of your company, because you really don't want to own any assets when you are in the US because of the tax regime. You have a lot more tax benefits, a lot of taxes you can avoid when you are acquiring things in the name of your enterprise, right? So those are key things. Apart from the fact that it creates anonymity, it also helps you protects you on many levels. Yeah, so we can always provide further advice when you choose to. So yes, it's good to invest in Nigeria, but you don't want to have all your income in naira only. You also want to have income, so you can actually invest in naira, so to speak, and start earning in dollars, so to speak, right? Because if that is where your money is coming from, you are investing in naira, but you are not going to be making money in dollars. And then rental income in the US is monthly, right? Yeah. So what people pay as annual rents in Nigeria is what people earn or pay as almost monthly or quarterly rent here. Of course, there are other little intricacies here and there, but when you reach out, we can always provide you further guidance if you so wish. Yeah. So whether you have visa to come to America or not, you can still get these things done. And I know people who have done this, and eventually those are the documentations they now took to embassy, and they were granted. Because what's your purpose for traveling? I'm going to go and see my properties, my property investments. Does that not make more sense? You are not going there to go and beg. You are going there to go and check your properties. It carries more weight that way, isn't it? So those are key things that people can consider. Then if you are looking to start a business, start with property. Put property first. Yeah. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 houses, if you can. You may be wondering, 10 houses, as how? And so reach out to us. We'll give you the breakdown and the details. You want to start a business in the US? US has the GDP of US is over $25 trillion. That's the biggest in the world, and it has the highest, even though the population is not as high as India or China, it has the highest spender consumer in the world with access to free money. Well, I would say free money. It's not free money, but they have access to money to spend. So if you are looking to start a business in the US, it gives you a lot of advantages as well. So, but this is not a business episode, so it's real estate. So, but that's why I said, even if you intend to do business, whatever business you decide to do, start it with real estate. And let me say this: the reason why I say this, and I say it with every conviction, is that you see that money that you could have used to buy real estate, you will still end up spending that much over time. So, but by buying real estate, you are only going to be operating from the cash flow of the real estate. So you're not spending the seed. You're not spending the capital. You're just living off or operating from, pending the time your business will now eventually take off and you begin to make success out of it. Yeah.